Are you properly beveraged up?
I am.
Well, Tom, welcome. You're on deck. Here we go. How do we go? Where do we go?
How about that election, huh? No politics.
I think that I would love to go there at some point in time. I think we'll just see when it naturally goes there. But I've got no problem, covering those topics. It's this is an open-ended conversation that we'll have many of. So
Right. I'd like to get further away from it. I'd like to forget about it for a while.
yeah, it's been. I think we would all agree, regardless of what you believe, where it's been a tough one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a tough one. So we won't go there.
No, we won't.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I do have to ask you, like Joe Rogan, you got to stay close to the microphone.
Oh, do I?
Yeah, you got to be like 3 fingers.
Has this been cleaned?
3 fingers. You can put your mask on too. You don't have to get that close.
I didn't know I had to stay that close.
So I'm curious, right? Like, okay, so we've worked together for a long time, both from New Jersey. We've talked about this a bunch, but I'd like to start off, if you're cool with it, getting a little bit of a recap of what it was like for you growing up in New Jersey. What are your memories of childhood in New Jersey?
Well, first off, I didn't know it was New Jersey because we were there.
Right.
So there wasn't that outside influence that was like, oh, New Jersey, until you got older and you traveled out.
Right.
And I was like, why does everybody hate New Jersey so much? So again, we were just living in it, and it was a pretty sweet life growing up.
What city did you grow up in? What town?
Well, I was born in Jersey City.
Jersey City, okay.
And the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, I think there was riots and protests.
Mm-hmm. In Newark, right?
In Newark and in Jersey City.
Yes.
And that's when my parents were like, we're out.
Right.
So my grandparents stayed there, and we all moved out to the suburbs, which was the Meadowlands.
Ah, okay.
Which was rolling hills of trash heaps.
Of garbage, right? Like
that was the mountains then.
Right. Isn't that a great way to rebrand? Like you started your life off in a community that was straight up branding, the Meadowlands.
The Meadowlands.
Right?
Yeah. Which was actually, I think it was horse farms and pig farms.
Right.
And then when we were kids, we heard these inklings they were going to build a sports complex or a jumbo mall. So secretly I was like, mall. But all my friends wanted the sports complex.
Right.
And the rumors went on for years before it actually took hold.
Right.
And then little by little we saw, them building it up and, it turned into the Meadowlands. But also at the same time, when I was in high school, my high school faced New York City.
Right.
And back then it was like rumors they're building this thing called the World Trade Center. We were like, ooh. And from all our classrooms, we could see the World Trade Center going up.
No way.
Month by month, week by week. So I watched in 4 years, or however long it took for them to get up.
Right.
And every day we'd all look out and see how high it was and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
So you went to school close, like right over the river.
Yep.
So you were literally looking at Manhattan every single day.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like, I remember as a kid, the trips you take into the city.
Right.
And I don't remember what the names of the routes are anymore, but I know you take Route 80, 46, and then you take like 6 or something like that before you got to the Lincoln Tunnel.
Right.
And I still remember like every single time I still get the same feeling. Like when you see the New York City skyline, it's just like,
right.
Oh, fuck, it's so awesome, right? It was just like always just such a sight. Mm-hmm. I mean, as a kid. So
right.
you got to like see that.
Right. But also when I grew up, it was a small little town.
Right.
But we were literally 10 minutes from Manhattan. But our town could have been in the Midwest because we never left that parameter.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you stayed in town.
Oh, yeah. Until we were like 18, 19.
Right.
We start going into the city.
Right.
And coming home at all hours in the morning.
Right.
The trick was to get home before your father woke up. Because the clubs and bars in Manhattan closed 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
New Jersey, as you well know, was 2 o'clock.
2, yeah.
So I had 2 older brothers, and they would never go in the city. So they were home at 2:30.
Right.
5 o'clock, I'm in the city, and I'm like, "Whoop, Dad's getting up in an hour. Gotta go."
No way.
Yeah.
Did he ever catch you?
Constantly.
Really? What was he like in those situations?
Well, he was tough on the outside. He was an ex-Marine. He looked like a mob boss, so there's that.
Right.
And he would try and stay up because, again, I mean, I was the youngest of three, so I kind of raised myself.
Right.
They were done with the first two, and they're like, "Yeah, kid, do what you want." But my dad had certain strict rules. Don't do this, don't do that. And his saying was, "You're going out, keep your nose clean." I was like, "Okay, try and do that." And I was like, I think 18 years old, and I got caught coming in around 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3 weekends in a row.
Right.
And at one point, my dad is like, "That's it." He's like, "One more and you're grounded for the rest of the year." And I'm like 18 years old.
Right. Yeah.
I'm living in his house. So
right.
His rules.
Yep.
So, of course, next weekend, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get home. Blah, blah, blah. I go out in the city. I'm like, oh, it's 12 o'clock. Da, da, da. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. I got plenty of time. Before I knew it, it was like 4:30. I was like, fuck.
Uh-oh.
Get in the car, which was his.
Oh, right.
That I took when he fell asleep because I had to have the Cadillac to go into the city.
No way it was a Cadillac?
Oh, yeah, of course it was. Why wouldn't it be?
Right.
And I'm rushing back from the city, and it's like 5:36. We had a 3-story home. I made it up to the second, which is where his bedroom was.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'm in. All of a sudden, he comes shuffling out. He's like, "What are you doing up so early?" I was like, "Up so early? I'm going to cut the grass." He's like, "Good, it needs it." I was like, okay. I went upstairs, changed my clothes. I went out, and I was like,
yeah, I'm sure the neighbors love that,
still
right?
drunk for the night before. Cutting the grass.
Nice straight line.
Yeah, that was it. So, I mean, yeah, growing up in Jersey, so close to New York, definitely had its benefits.
Right. Now, I'm curious because I've never really thought about this. What did you when your dad says to you keep your nose clean? Like when your dad's like
it wasn't what you're thinking.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that.
Right. But do you think I've never even given that comment any thought of that? Did that specifically think that for some specific people that specifically meant like don't do coke?
No. Back in their day, that was just keep on the straight and narrow.
Right.
But of course, in our era, it had a whole different meaning.
Right.
But I was like, what does he know? Why do you say that to me?
When did you, at what point in your life did you say, okay, I live in New Jersey, I can see New York, and I go into New York, but I live in New Jersey, and apparently that's different, right?
It's actually that one point in every teenage movie where they graduate high school.
Right.
Some go off to college. Some people just say, "Oh, I love this town. I'm never leaving. I'm going to die here."
Right.
And that's when you split up. And that was the point where I was like, okay, did that. And I have this talent. And let me see if I could get into a school in Manhattan or whatever and start it there. Because there was nothing there for me art-wise in my little hometown.
Right.
So that's why I actually went into the city and started trying to get into Parsons.
Uh-huh. That was the school, Parsons School of Art and Design, right?
Still is. And my grades weren't that great to get in the first semester. So I took night classes, and I was working in Jersey at the same time. So I was working till 5, driving to the city, going to night school, getting back home at like 9, 10, 11, doing my design work, then going to school, work the next day. And I did that for 4 months, 5 months.
Uh-huh.
And I got enough credits, and I reapplied, and they took me in.
So, okay, so let's, there's a couple of threads there that I'd like to touch on. One, I just want to say, Greg, just if you could push Tom's fader up just a touch, right? Because I fully understand that Tom's not really excited about getting on top of the Rona mic.
Depends who Rona is.
Hey. Okay, so let's talk about the creativity thing. Like, what started it for you? What was your entrance into the creative field? Like, what stimulated you as a kid that got you down into this path?
Well, it's one of those things where I was born with it. And actually, all 3 brothers, we all were born with my mother's talent, because my mother could draw, paint, anything she put her mind to.
Right.
And so I guess it's genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad couldn't even draw a straight line. So we got nothing from him.
Right.
So I knew at a young age, this is something I could really do well. And, when I graduated, so actually my mom kind of pushed me to go into the city.
Right.
Because she always said, if she was younger or she wasn't married, she would have done what I did. So I was like her protege, and she pushed me out. She's like, "Okay, kid, you're on."
Right.
So that was great, actually. It's a God-given talent when you're born with that, and I think it's a shame to not follow it.
Mm-hmm.
2 of my brothers chose not to. One is kind of happy, and the other one has a lot of regrets.
Really?
Well, yeah, because he's kind of at the point in his life, well, gee, if I should have, would have, could
If
have.
I'd only done this,
Right.
maybe things would have turned out that way.
Right. And back then, when we were all still home together, I was, like I said, getting up early and going to school and 2 jobs and all that, and they were sleeping. And back then I was like, what am I killing myself for? Look at them.
Right.
They're still in bed. What am I knocking myself out for? And eventually it all paid off.
So, but what was it like? Was it actual illustration, painting, drawing? Like, where did it start? And then
Drawing first. My first year at Parsons was, it was a foundation. I was going to be an illustrator.
Okay.
Because that's what I knew how to do. I knew how to draw. And after a year of illustration instruction, I said, I'm not going to make any money doing this. I don't want to be a starving artist.
Right.
I know what my talents are, and I want to make money doing that.
Yes.
So the next year, I just went into communication design.
Okay.
So I wanted to work in print. I wanted to work on Madison Avenue,
Right.
Condé Nast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And when I graduated, I got a couple of interviews there, and they looked at my portfolio. They're like, "Yeah, we'll call you." I was like, "Oh." So I moved back after school, back to my parents' house in Jersey, and I saw this little thing called MTV on that just started. And I was like, "Oh, those graphics are kind of cool." And I saw the name or number something at the end of the show, and I wrote a letter, and I got a letter back said coming for an interview.
No way.
I was like, "Cool." So I went in, and oh wait, I think and it was a woman. She was the art director, and I was on my way there, and I think she called me, or I called her, and she goes, "Don't you know who this is?" I said, "No," and it was a girl that was 1 year ahead of me at Parsons. So she graduated, and she was the first art director at MTV, and she recognized my name, and she knew who I was. So she brought me in, and she hired me.
So this is like what, 82, 83,
80,
84?
I graduated 81, so this was 82.
82. So literally, MTV just comes out of nowhere.
Yep.
It becomes like the biggest thing. Like for a while, like it was the biggest thing
actually,
ever.
it didn't come out of nowhere. It was for a year. It was on in the Midwest
Oh, really?
and California. Those were the testing grounds.
Oh.
Because if they were going to fuck up, they figured they'll fuck up in those little markets.
Right.
After a year, then they launched in Manhattan and all across the country.
So you see it. So you see it on TV, and you were motivated in that moment to reach out via a letter.
Oh, yeah, old school.
But that's so fucking cool, right? Like, I mean, seriously, think about that.
You got to take a shot in life
Yes.
because you never know who's on the other end.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you
Well, I mean, it was when I tell you it wasn't on yet in Manhattan because I was, working my butt off because I liked the job. I loved the people. It was just, and everybody was from radio, actually. There was nobody who was, from cable TV at the time. So it was a lot of radio personalities and whatnot. So when I would go out with my friends at night, I would say, "Hey, what do you do?" Say, "Oh, I work at this thing called MTV." "Oh, what is it?" "Well, we show videos 24 hours a day." And it sounded really boring. And people were like, "Oh, that's cool." And "Oh, look, somebody more important." They would walk away. Fast forward to a year, 2 years later, it's like,
Right.
"Oh my God, you work at MTV. Oh my God, I love that. Oh, can I come in? Can you show me that?" So there was that.
I mean, I still remember, the first time I saw MTV. Like, I can still remember where I was, what came on. I don't remember the video or whatever. I know they
Right.
started with "Video Kills the Radio Star" or
Right.
something like that, but I mean, it was a total phenomenon, especially for someone like me who loved music.
Right.
It was just so cool. So, all right, so you get there. What's it like? What's it like working at MTV?
Well, in the
early
beginning,
days?
it was very corporate because it was Warner Brothers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was not some like indie pop-up thing.
Not yet.
This was like a corporate project.
We were on 6th Avenue. We were on like the 30th floor, and we had the whole floor. And then the show was actually shot at a studio down in 33rd Street, down by the river.
Right.
But it was just a product they were putting out. It wasn't what people thought it was until much later,
Right.
where it kind of grew into what people thought it was,
Right.
which was fun. So, yeah, I was there from 82 to 89, I think. The hairband years.
Well, yeah, all the original like J.J. Jackson, Nina Blackwood, Mark.
I had a crazy crush on Nina Blackwood.
Oh yeah,
my God.
Have you ever listened to her? She has a radio show on Sirius XM
does she?
now. Yeah, can you imagine what she sounds like?
I remember we would sometimes walk from the office building down to the studio.
Right.
Because at one point I had to bring the graphics to the studio and we actually put them in front of the camera to shoot them. It wasn't like now with file transfers. It's like you literally did it at a drawing board.
Right.
Put it in the suitcase, walk down to the studio, and before every shift for the VJs, we'd shoot it into the camera. Yeah.
Like literally like a poster board graphic,
exactly.
Right? That you create in the portfolio.
Right. But we also did, like every day we had 3 meetings. We had music news meetings.
Okay.
Morning, noon, and before the show. So you throw around topics in the morning. We'd get our marching orders. We'd start arting everything up. By 3 o'clock, some more things might change. We're like, okay, this. Then at the last minute, of course, a lot of things would change. And it's not like today where you're deleting layers. It's like, okay, literally
starting
back to
over.
the drawing board. literally. So that taught me a lot. That taught me a lot between your vision and your deadline. And at some point, you might have to give up a little bit of each,
right,
to make that deadline.
Yes.
So I thought that was an important part in life. But yeah, when I look back, it was crazy. It was so much fun.
What without digging into all the dirty details, as as MTV starts to take off and become a phenomenon, and you're working there, anybody would ask this question, like who did you see coming and going, and were you able to see that, or did they have you working in a separate area? Was it a nonstop party? Like, what's it like working at MTV? It was
definitely not a nonstop party. Well, maybe the executives were partying. Right. We were putting on the show.
So you were working.
We were working our butt off. The only times we got to party was the Christmas party, New Year's Eve party, all that stuff.
Right.
And yeah, we had some crazy times then. I've never been one for celebrities.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to cross the street to meet one. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't always one. But at some point, they moved the graphics department from the offices down to the studio, which made sense.
Okay, right.
And that's when I really got to see them coming in day after day, because we had the green room and all that stuff.
Right.
And again, all those heavy metal bands back in the day, and they're all, their attitude was all like crazy and dirty and stuff.
Yeah.
They were just the opposite. How's my hair? How's my shirt? How's the lighting? What do I look like?
Right.
Just the opposite.
I believe that though, because like that whole, if you look at that string of bands that was like, mid to late '80s, and I won't think of all of them, but it was everything from Winger, Skid Row, Cinderella, and I'm not even naming any
Van
of them.
Halen.
Oh, Van Halen. Okay.
Spandex bands.
That's true. Okay. So, but like, I think there's almost like 2 classifications. You have like the Van Halens.
Right.
And, ultimately that led to like, at the tail end of that, Guns N' Roses. But it was still sort of this, and I'm not putting Guns N' Roses in the hairband.
Right.
But the hairband guys were like, it was like all about this look, and the music was just zero substance. Right.
Exactly.
It was just like, oh.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Who had bigger hair and who was dressed more like a woman.
And do you remember when we unmasked Kiss?
Yes.
I was there for that.
No way.
And I remember when they came in and I was like, oh, Christ, they should have kept the makeup on. Jeez.
Now, were you ever a Kiss fan growing up?
I was. Only a few songs, not many.
Right.
I mean, my man was David Bowie. He was, out of all the years I worked there, the only person I ever really wanted to see was David Bowie, and he never came in. We did a shoot with him, I think in Switzerland on skis. We did a promo, I Want My MTV.
Right.
He came down the slope, did a slalom move and said, I want my MTV.
Uh-huh.
But that was it. But he's the only one. The most beautiful I remember was Annie Lennox.
Really?
She was striking. She was like 6'1", thin as a rail. I think she was a model at some point.
Right.
But, I mean, I just never expected her to be that beautiful.
Mm.
The nicest, Tina Turner, without a doubt.
Really?
She was so accommodating. If you wanted to take a picture with her, whatever. As a matter of fact, it was myself, I think the wardrobe girl, and Tina Turner. And we had that little barber's chair or booth on the set. And, we said, can we get a picture? She said, oh, yes, no problem. So I was kind of behind Tina, and she was in the front with that big spiky thing.
Like what's love got to do with it, right?
And the photographers were about to take the picture, and I know her wig is like right in my face. And I said, Miss Turner, I'm so sorry. But can you lean a little bit?
I can't be seen in the photo behind your wig.
Exactly. I said, that's kind of the whole point. She's, oh, baby, I'm so sorry, honey. How's this? It's just so nice. She was really sweet.
She was fucking badass. Like if you look at her, I mean, her entire career, but you go back to like when when she was with the Ike and Tina show. Holy smokes, was she powerful?
She's a survivor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was. Everybody knows that was a fucking horrible situation for her.
Right.
But boy, did she power through that, and she was an incredible performer.
Right. Oh, I remember one time Elton John came to the studio, and I had just done something in the control room, and I was walking through, and they asked the intern to go get Elton. He was in the green room. And I said, Elton John? She said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, can I go get him? I said, because I kind of liked him. Yeah, just tell him, 5 minutes. I said, okay. So I go to the green room, open the door, no Elton. It's like, fuck. Go to the men's room. Where else am I going to go?
Right.
No Elton. So I went out to the receptionist and I said, you see Elton John? She goes, oh, yeah, he left in a huff. I said, a huff about what? I think this was the time when he was kind of imbibing in a lot of things in his life.
Falling apart again.
And he was in this diva mode, and apparently he wasn't being treated like he thought should be treated.
Right.
And he just walked out like 5 minutes before the interview. So
whoops.
Yeah, I had to go to the control room. I'm like, no Elton. So what do you mean no Elton? Just not around. He left. Sorry. Gotta go.
Yeah, you're this close. That close.
I was.
What a cool, but I mean, to think about, as, a young guy coming up in your career, right? And being able to start and being, to be able to be part of that, something that was truly groundbreaking and special. And I'm sure on a day-to-day basis, you're going to work. It's like, this is my job, right?
Exactly.
Like, it didn't feel that. It's not like you walked in every day and like, we're breaking new territory.
No,
right?
but I knew that when I decided to leave, it was a great launching pad for me.
Yes.
Because that looks great on a resume, and your reel looks great, and your graphics look great. And so I knew that was down the road, so I was happy about that.
Now, during that time, you transitioned from like drawing poster boards and standing in front of the camera to actually like creating stuff on computers. And
Right. Before the Mac, there was this system from England. It was called Quantel.
Uh-huh.
And
Quantel.
Quantel.
Sounds artsy.
And it was basically an analog version of a Mac.
Right.
And we had a drawing board. It was electronic, and I had a pen attached. And the machine room, it came with basically a machine room, racks and racks of software.
No shit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just to run it.
Yeah, and the tapes were like, this big,
Right.
size of a suitcase. And that was my initial step into electronic art, I guess, at the time.
Sure.
That's what it was called. And it blew people away. Like, we'd have tours come in, especially like inner city kids and stuff like that. And I loved showing them, how to do the stuff. And they were just like, this is like magic, I would take a picture from one of their IDs and do something and, print it out for them. And they were like, oh my God. And so that was hot for about 10 years. The Mac started coming in and started to push them out, but the Mac was really slow in the beginning.
Right.
Like when you did a brush stroke, you did the brush stroke and then you waited for it to happen. Like,
yeah.
And they tried to push me toward it, and I tried it a few times. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I just go back to my old one until it got a lot more powerful and stuff like that. And that's what that happened. So, yeah. And at one point, actually, because when I started there, I was making $12,000 a year.
All right.
And
a G a month.
After
living in the city, or were you still going back to Jersey?
In the beginning, I was commuting from my parents, and then
Right.
after about 2 years, I moved in the city.
Okay.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, right.
I will tell you though, the best Christmas party we ever had was at the Museum of Natural History.
Yeah.
Do you know the whale room?
Yes, of course.
They rented out.
What kid that was the room,
Yeah.
right?
They rented out the whole whale room for our Christmas party.
No way.
And we had a DJ under the whale, and all the tables were set up for dinner. And then after dinner, all the tables were gone, and we had a dance floor for like 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, awesome.
We got carried out of that place.
Good times. Good times at the MTV party under the whale.
Yeah.
That was the, if I remember correctly, because every year for school, we would take a trip into the Museum of Natural History.
Right.
And I think, my mom would take us in, once a year as well, too. But if I remember, it always felt like that ended up being like the last stop.
Right.
Like there was a maze through the whole place.
Right, and it was actually
the
a step
whale
down.
room was like,
Yeah, because you came in like above
yes,
the whale, and then you had to walk down.
Down.
And then I think they had like aquariums or stuff. On the
yes,
side.
all the way around. Oh, it was so cool.
Yeah, it was.
Like, what a great. I don't know. I mean, I know that everybody grows up somewhere, and I'm
Right.
sure most people think about where they grew up and
Right.
what they were able to experience, and it was great,
Yeah.
right? To grow up in proximity of New York City and to be able to go in regularly,
Right.
such a treat. Like every little bit about it was like I found like a badge of honor. Like like you get in there, knowing how to knowing how to get around the city. Number one, right? What the different neighborhoods were. How to handle yourself because the city was rougher back then, right?
Sure
I mean, it was there were some areas that were horrible. You know, like we'd have my friend's dad take us in, and we'd go and we'd be like, drive up to Harlem.
Got a death wish, kid?
Yeah, I know, so dumb. Like white kids from the suburbs, right? Be like, let's go to Harlem and let's see the bums, and I want to see all the horrible stuff.
Well, our mothers used to take. I had 6 other cousins, and they were all boys too. So we were 9 boys all together. And once a year, they would the women would take us young kids in to see like Rockefeller Center or a play or something like that. But we would get off of the bus in Port Authority and walk through Times Square, which was all porn and XXX and peep show.
Everything. 42nd Street was like, it was horrible. Right. And same here too. We'd be coming in from the burbs on a bus or in my mom's car or whatever. And you're going down, it's just like XXX everywhere.
Right. And
filthy.
We were like, knee high to a grasshopper. We were like eye level with everything that was on those poster boards. So our mothers were like, okay, kids, eyes straight ahead. Don't look left or right.
Can you imagine? Like, think about it. I guess that was our internet porn back then. Obviously you didn't have it, but the point is, like, as a kid, you go in and you see all this shit. You're like, holy shit!
You didn't know what it was, but you knew like it was really intriguing and bad.
Yeah,
So there was that, and then those lovely women that used to work by the entrance to the tunnel. And I use the word women loosely, because half of them were men.
Hookers.
Want to date? I'm like, no, I'm 16. Right. I don't want to date.
So great.
You're right. Growing up there, it's. Again, you make it there, you make it anywhere. It's like you learn all your basic life skills in New York City.
I took great pride. Listen, I lived further out in the burbs. And so when I was, as I got old, we went in as a family and what have you for school. But as I started to get older and getting into music and going into New York, and like particularly when I was like getting into hardcore music, we'd go see these, punk and hardcore shows at CBGB's. Oh yeah, we went there. I used to go to the hardcore matinee every Sunday with my friends. We'd ride the path, take the path into Hoboken, and
then throw up on the way home.
No, we weren't drinking. We were all straight edge kids.
Oh.
Yeah, so we were not like, we were actually very wholesome kids, but like going into these really
and you didn't
rough
get robbed?
areas.
Did you get rolled?
Never once. Never once.
I saw Deborah Harry at CBGB's.
Did you? No shit.
When she was just starting out. Actually, a friend of mine who was really into her from my hometown, he's like, we got to go see this group called Blondie. And who opened up for it? Oh, he was like a folksy old guy back in the day. And he was headlining, and they were just opening up for him.
Right.
So we just went to see her. And CBGB's, it was like, a shotgun little apartment, with a stage in the corner.
Yeah, back.
And she would basically just throw herself from one side of the stage and hit the wall while she's singing and stuff. She was awesome.
Yeah, that was my favorite. As Jersey suburb kids who were into hardcore music, going into New York and going to see shows at CB's was like that, because the Lower East Side was rough, back then. Yeah. And so to go in there and get in that place, and you're right, it was a tiny dump.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I never once had to use the bathroom there, because apparently the bathroom at CBGB's is a legendary absolute horror show. It's like downstairs in the basement. It's one room with like a urinal, a toilet, no dividers, no nothing. Like if you had to take a shit, you're just sitting there like in a filthy graffiti-laden hellhole.
Hey, take your shit in New Jersey. Come into the city afterward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Leave that at home for another time. So cool.
And the same friend who used to drag me in to see Blondie, and I'm so glad he did, because I wound up following them for years. After CBGB's, we would drive up 6th Avenue to where Arista Records
Okay.
was. And he would go the night before they pick up the garbage, because there would be tons of demo tapes and all that stuff. And I would sit there with him, and he'd go through the pile to see if there was anybody he knew, or,
No way.
Oh, yeah. And it was just out on the street, he knew what day to go and get it.
Some band's hard work and labor, their hopes and dreams, like,
Yep.
shout out onto the streets of New York where
kid,
people are
we'll call
rummaging
you.
through. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Next. Brutal. When was the last time you were in New York?
Oh, I went up for a wedding 2 years ago. And it was the hottest week they've said they've had in like 10 years. And I forgot. I mean, yes, it gets hot down here, but there's a breeze and it's open. In the city,
Yes.
it's just
Sweltering.
Yeah, you just turn a corner and it's more hot air coming towards you.
Right.
So there was that. But I was amazed at how many little boutiques and stores have closed because of online purchasing. You see all those boxes now outside the big buildings, Amazon and, Walmart, all that.
Right.
Nobody goes shopping anymore. It's just all, delivered to them. So
Think about that. You could, it didn't matter what neighborhood you were in New York. There was always 8 zillion of the fucking camera and boombox stores.
Right.
Remember, jam packed up to the front with boom boxes, cameras, and all that stuff. And you got to figure all those stores. It's where they go now.
But also, when they people outside the city say that New York style, it's usually about a woman, the way she wears her clothes or whatever. And that New York style is because of all those boutiques.
Yes.
That were independent designers and tailors and whatnot. So, they're wearing stuff that those other people have never seen before.
Right.
And that's the New York style. And all that's gone now, unless it's online.
I don't know. I'd love to go back to the city. I miss it. I like going there once every couple years or so just to absorb, what it feels like. It reminds you of, it reminds me of bigness and, unlimited possibilities. It's just such a powerful city.
Well, it's odd because when I do get there, the first thing I want to do is go to the park, which is
really,
kind of weird because I'm, going back to the city, but I got to go to Central Park right now. I can't to this day believe that you could stand in the middle of that park and not even hear a car, a horn at some point in there. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
I used to rollerblade, ride my bike there. And again, a young kid from New Jersey, I would put my bike on the PATH train and go into the city.
Right.
Drive up to Central Park. Here's this white skinny kid up in Harlem on his bike.
You're out riding around, right? Do.
Yeah, no problem.
That's great.
This looks like a nice neighborhood.
So you grew up in New Jersey. You spent all this time in New York, and I know you've had a lot more experiences in New York. But when is having had both of those experiences, what do you identify yourself with as a New Yorker or from New Jersey?
I never considered myself a New Yorker. I went there. I got my education.
Right.
I've got friends I'll know for a lifetime because they were really just real people. When I was going into the city and I started working at MTV, and I'm meeting all these different people, and I always thought, oh, New York, they're like scary people. They're stuck up. They're this, they're that.
Whatever.
And after about 2 weeks, I'm like, these are the nicest people I've ever met. And I'm still friends with them to this day. As a matter of fact, I had an MTV T-shirt from 1984 in the back of my closet.
No way.
And I put it on the other day, and it fit.
Dude, you got to wear that to work one day.
I did. You were out the other day.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And I texted it to actually one of the girls that I met on my first day. And I said, happiness is fitting into a T-shirt from 1984. And it was the MTV logo with the angel wings on the side.
Yeah.
Two big wings.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, oh, my God, I have one too from 1984.
How does it feel to have watched, the graphic design / video production industry change? What still feels common, and what has just is so different that it's hard to believe.
The last one first. It's hard to believe how fast you can produce things now.
Right.
It was such a production back in the day. Back in the day, you didn't know if something was going to turn out until you actually finished it, which sounds kind of bizarre.
Right.
But now the way you work, and you work in layers and elements and all these other things, that at some point you're like, yeah, I need to go in this direction or that direction. Again, back in the day, you couldn't do that. The one thing I see that's timeless is that there's always something hot. There's always a look or an effect that's really cool for about a minute.
Right.
Everybody copies it, and then it's on to the next. And that never seems to change year by year. There's always something. Sometimes it's more complicated design and effects, and some years it's just simple text and simple nothing. Less is more.
Do you still enjoy it?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I got into the animation aspect was because, again, when I was at MTV and then I went into video production houses in Manhattan, I was still the guy doing the one single frame or a couple of frames for a video or something, and I'd hand it off to the editor.
Right.
And, the editor was king back then. He had like 2 playbacks. He had these guys that would run in and out with tapes and all this stuff. At some point, I was like, why am I giving my work to somebody else to do? I had no control once I handed it off.
Right.
So then I'm like, okay, I need to know what he's doing. I need to learn how to be an editor. So I came from the world of design first, and I taught myself how to edit.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of the editors are just the reverse. They know how to edit, and they kind of want to be a designer. Back to what I said initially, that I think you're born with the design gene or the eye.
Right.
So it's harder to teach an editor to be a designer than a designer to be an editor.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
that's how I fell into that.
Fair enough. What at this stage in your career, what would you call a dream project? Right. Like if you could say, all right, I can be compensated to do this. I have years of talent and ability and experience that this would be something that would be, I don't want to say a capstone, but like a meaningful project to be involved with at this stage of your career.
It's not about the monetary.
Right.
And I hearken back to, like I was saying about the tours at MTV of inner city kids coming in. And I still to this day remember the expression on their faces when you show them what's possible and another direction to go in your life. If I could do something like that, I mean, it doesn't matter about the money.
Right.
It's just about taking what I was born with and passing it on, basically, for another generation.
It's funny. I feel a personal sense of regret at this point in time that we have not been able to make that happen yet, right? Because we talked about that,
right.
Having interns and how great it would be to have a bunch of interns. We're all
right.
set up for it,
right.
and we've not succeeded in making that happen yet.
But a lot of people aren't even open. Like I thought, I've offered it to many nephews, friends,
right?
Friends' kids, and some of them are like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. And I'll offer it, and they'll just kind of walk away from it. So it's not something you can force on someone.
No, yeah. I mean, there's got to be that drive or that desire
right.
to learn that, right?
Right. So yeah, I guess that would be my dream project.
All right. Well, let's not let that be a dream, right? Let's find a way, somehow.
Well, like you said, we've been working together for 8-9 years now, and it's just been 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This happens. We've had a lot of major incidents in our lives, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, without a doubt, during the, because you are our foundational, pillar of video production.
Yeah. How'd that happen?
You reached out to me.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I still remember you came in,
Oh,
probably dressed exactly the same, except maybe you had a hoodie on.
I had shorts on.
Yeah, and we sat in the back office over there, and then we talked, and you were the first.
Well, you weren't ready for me yet, though. I don't think. You just wanted to meet.
Well, whatever it wasn't long after that
right.
that you did come a part of the team.
And I remember when you said you were from Jersey.
Yes.
And I said, what part? And you said Sparta, and I said, oh, I have family in Sparta too. And you looked at me like this was bullshit. He's just trying to suck up to get the job. Because who else would be from that little mountain town?
Yeah, Sparta, New Jersey. Like not only that, like I mean, I seem to recall that you'd seen the street that I lived on and everything.
Yeah,
right?
I went up there, went to see my family.
That's great.
Yep. So we had a connection. It was meant to be.
Yes, it was, and it's been a great run, and we're going to continue doing it. And the most exciting thing that I can share with you right now is that through the course of all this, and yes, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps. I mean, it's been a lot of that. Like, and the net effect has been a consistent growth over time. But yeah, I mean, we've been through a lot of ups and downs over this period of time, without a doubt.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. But I think that right now, it's not even that I know that now is really the time in our industry where I feel that being able to do really great and different work for our clients in the retail automotive spectrum, and then where that leads it, where it leads.
Right.
I feel that we can really do that now. I don't feel that we're so beholden to the standard, the big sale of this month. Come on in now, get this car for that car for that. I mean, there's always going to be a piece of that.
Right.
But I really feel that we can start doing a better job of taking the work to the next level, if you will.
Right.
And I'm excited to do
Well,
that.
anytime we've actually jumped up or stepped up and did creative on spec for a client, they're like blown away.
Yes.
So again, they don't know what they want until you show them to them. Like, look what we can do.
There's not many people in our space left that do it, quite frankly. Almost all we all had to move to digital.
Right.
We're still there, but a lot of the companies that moved to digital abandoned all of what we do, right? For whatever reason. And I think that gives us a real unique opportunity. So I look forward to sharing that with you this year and many years to come.
Julio.
Tom, thank you, man.
Mr.
We're going to
Herman.
do this again.
We will.
All right.
Thank you.